which was far larger at that time. During and right after the Revolution, trade shifted to Baltimore. Back on the left, all the buildings with copper roofs belong to the United States Naval Academy. The first building with a large round roof is Halsey Fieldhouse, an indoor athletic facility where the men and women of the Academy participate in winter athletics. Attached to the Fieldhouse is the Arnold Leftwich Visitor Center. The second building is the Shoot Hall, both a swimming and wrestling facility. And the third building with the multicolored bricks is Ricketts Hall, the Naval Academy Athletic Association building. Attached to Mitchell Hall is the Levy Center and Jewish Chapel, named for Commodore Uriah P. Levy. The 35,000 square foot facility boasts a 410-seat synagogue and an entranceway modeled after Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. As we leave Spot Creek to your right, you will see the mouth of the Severn River and the Chesapeake Bay. We'll be heading out in that direction a little later, and we'll talk more about that then. For the present time, keep your view to the left. In the foreground, you will see the Academy's athletic fields where students, called midshipmen, practice football, soccer, lacrosse, and that oldest of military activities, marching. A sailor learning to march to drum cadences and shouted commands is considered an essential element of military discipline. Before the mid-1960s, none of these fields existed, as this area of the harbor was all water. It was about this time that the Severn River was dredged, rocks were placed where you see them, and the fields were created by filling in the bottom material behind the rocks. As a matter of fact, when the Naval Academy was founded in 1845, they consisted of less than 10 acres. It's now over 338 acres, a great deal of which was created by dredging the harbor bottom. Again, on your left, you'll see what appears to be a complex of buildings, but is really one, Bancroft Hall, the dormitory of the men and women of the Academy. It's reported to be the largest dormitory in the United States, housing approximately 4,400 men and women. It contains 1,700 rooms, 4.8 miles of corridor, covers over 33 acres of floor space, and even has its own zip code. The hall is named for George Bancroft, Secretary of the Navy, who in 1845 arranged for the transfer of Fort Severn to the point of land where the Academy is now situated. On October 10, 1845, approximately 50 midshipmen and a 7-man faculty began the Academy, which has operated here continuously since that time, except for the transfer to New York Island during the Civil War. During the Civil War, the Naval Academy grounds became their refuge and were predominantly used as a hospital. On our left, located at the corner of the seawall closest to us, try to spot the white masts with a damaged platform. This is the foremasts from the battleship Maine that in 1898 sunk in an explosion in Havana Bay, Cuba. The disaster killed a majority of her crew, carrying nearly 260 sailors to their deaths, and launched the United States into the Spanish-American War. This memorial has stood here at the Academy since 1913, while the ship's main mast stands in Arlington National Cemetery. If you look just beyond the mast, you'll see a long, black Mark 14 torpedo, the type used by American submarines during the Second World War, notorious for frequent malfunctions. This torpedo is dedicated to the 427 crew members who died in U.S. submarine disasters between 1900 and 1975. We will make a turn now around the corner of the United States Naval Academy and head up the beautiful scenic Severn River. As we do, we see a green light on a three-sided base. This light, named Triton Light, was furnished as a monument by the Naval Academy class of 1945 and holds a glass sphere containing water from the 22 seas of the world. The crew of the USS Triton submarine obtained this water on the first underwater circumnavigation of the globe in 1960. During its 60-day, 21-hour voyage, USS Triton clocked almost 27,000 nautical miles and showcased our Navy's first generation of nuclear-powered subs endurance at the height of the Cold War. The building you see on your left with the peaked gold-shaped roof is the Robert Crown Sailing Center, built in 1974. The art of sailing is still considered to be important training for the midshipmen. Just beyond the Robert Crown Center is a water basin known as Santee Basin. In the basin, you'll see small and medium-sized sailboats, all of which are used for training purposes. The larger of the boats, in fact, are taken out not only to the Chesapeake Bay, but well out into the Atlantic Ocean for rigorous training, where the students acquire a healthy respect for the might of the sea. Behind the basin on our left side is a gray brick building with large glass windows. This is the Wesley Brown Field House, a training facility with advanced personal conditioning technology. Named for Lieutenant Commander Wesley A. Brown, who in 1949 became the Academy's first African-American graduate. The 140,000 square foot facility includes weight training and sports medicine facilities, seating for over 750 spectators, as well as a track surface with hydraulically controlled banked curves. This 200-meter hydraulic track is one of only 4 of its kind in the U.S. The 2 buildings closest to you are known as Chauvenet and Michelson Halls. Michelson was one of the first Americans to win the Nobel Prize in Physics for accurately measuring the speed of light. And Chauvenet was one of the original Academy professors in 1845. Behind the buildings, you'll see the dome of the United States Naval Academy chapel with the gold peak. And yes, that is of John Paul Jones, recognized as the first great naval hero in American history.
Yeah, that should get it perfect, yeah.
As we come alongside Michelson and Chauvenet Halls, we can look between them and see the exterior of the chapel structure, whose interior is even more beautiful than the outside. During the French Revolution, Commodore John Paul Jones died in 1792 at the age of 45. His body was buried in Paris, but in 1905, after a lengthy search, his remarkably preserved remains were discovered and transported back to the United States thanks to President Theodore Roosevelt. In 1913, his body was finally laid to rest here in the chapel in a magnificent marble sarcophagus, a beautiful dedication from the nation for which he helped gain independence. The building on the corner with the vertical glass windows is Hopper Hall. Opened in 2020, Hopper Hall is named for Admiral Grace Hopper, a renowned mathematician and computer programmer. The building is home to the Academy's Cyber Warfare and Computer Science departments. We're going to make our turn now, and as we do, there are a number of points of interest that you can view from the left or port side of our vessel. First is the small body of water that you can see alongside
So why
the
do you
classroom,
practice docking?
known as College Creek.
I think
This
so.
creek divides the Naval Academy
I think I
and
landed at the
continues
field
up to
dock
St.
there,
John's
so that's
College. Just beyond
I've
the
had
river
a
is a
couple
gray
today.
building that once operated as the United States Navy Hospital. A part of the building named Beach Hall currently serves as publisher of the Institute's Proceedings magazine and the blockbuster novel The Hunt for Red October. The two bridges you see spanning the Severn River are important arteries for the region's busy land traffic. The nearest, Route 4, and was completed
coming
in
in the city dock
1994.
today. I keep coming
It carries local traffic
to, like,
between Annapolis and the residential areas on the far side. The current bridge has replaced two earlier bridges, the first of which was built in 1886. The second bridge carries Route 50 and Route 301 traffic from the Washington, D.C. metro area to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and the Eastern Shore of Maryland. In the background beyond the first bridge is a magnificent white structure now known as Atria at Manresa. Originally a Catholic retreat, Manresa is now a deluxe retirement home and assisted living center. Finally, as our vessel comes about, you can see a few of the beautiful homes that adorn the banks and bluffs of the river, as well as some of the many creeks that flow from both sides of the Severn. We'll be heading out of the river now, toward its mouth, where it meets the Chesapeake Bay. There are many creeks in the Chesapeake, such as Spa Creek, from which we began our trip. And there are many rivers, such as the Severn that we're on now. If we added them all together, the shoreline of the creeks, rivers, coves, islands, and the bay itself would total over 11,000 miles, more than the shoreline of the east and west coasts of the United States combined. The Chesapeake Bay is the drowned valley of the Susquehanna River, which has its beginning in Cooperstown, New York. It winds its way through the state of New York, through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and into Maryland, where the river enters the bay about 65 miles north of here. Annapolis has an average tide rise and fall of approximately 1 foot, and the water is slightly salty, although the flow of the Susquehanna River keeps the Annapolis water reasonably fresh. The bay produces an array of seafood, two of the most famous, of course, being the blue crab and the Chesapeake Bay oyster. As you know, oysters are eaten raw, steamed, or baked. One of the most famous recipes is oysters Rockefeller. Traditionally, these mollusks are taken in the winter, spring, and fall during any month that has the letter R in its name. While they certainly take the cake in cleaning the environment and acting as a culinary treat. One Chesapeake Bay oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. At one time, oysters were so plentiful that they could filter the entire environment.
There's a big wave coming.
Just one day. About 19 trillion gallons.
Oh, the waves are coming.
Pollution and habitat loss have led to a severe drop in oyster populations and the demise of the bay's healthy reef. However, careful management by volunteers of oyster programs returning empty shells to reefs in the
waves
bay
are coming.
provide hope for creating healthy, sustainable Chesapeake Bay oyster populations. For months, the
I gotta
people of the
say, this is
Chesapeake
fun.
switched from catching oysters to the blue crab. Our crabs come in two forms, either hard or
Guys,
soft
this
shell,
is actually
both
quite
of which
fun.
are quite a delicacy. And lastly, the bay
Could take
produces
a nap
an
out
abundance of fish. One of the most plentiful is called menhaden. Along with oysters, menhaden play a critical role in the food chain of the Chesapeake Bay. They provide a food source for our predatory fish and birds, as well as mitigating toxic algae blooms that can be detrimental to several marine species. Another important element of menhaden is the oil they produce that is
in the revolutionary improvement of warship acoustics and hull designs. There was even a maneuvering and seakeeping facility equipped with multiple wave makers that could help predict the performance of ships in rough seas. However, due to the advent of electronic computers, the need for rudimentary calculation of data became obsolete. The facility has now been shut down and transferred to an independent firm for private developments. On our right side, as we pass the Naval Academy seawall, you can look up through Spa Creek and see just a few of the many sailboat masts that have caused Annapolis to be known as the sailing capital of the United States, and was once the home of the National Sailing Hall of Fame.
That's how I just came home, guys.
Back on our left, you can see a boat basin filled with great vessels that measure just over 100 feet in length. These are known as PPs, or yard patrols, and are used by midshipmen as compact trading vessels. They're taken out into the Chesapeake Bay, where the men and women of the Academy learn the maneuvers, navigation, and signaling that will later be required on larger combat ships. The buildings just beyond the basin used to be airplane hangars and contained what were known before the Second World War as yellow perils. These were small, two-winged seaplanes in which midshipmen learned to fly. The planes received their name Yellow Perils from their yellow color and the perilous nature in which they were landed. One of the last remaining seaplanes of this type is on display and may be seen at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum Annex in Dulles, Virginia. Just beyond the hangars, you will see the three tall radio towers mentioned at the beginning of this tour.
I can change
They
it.
sit
It
upon
looks
an
good.
area of land called Greenbury
Ready,
Points,
guys?
the Navy-owned peninsula that separates Annapolis Harbor and the Severn
And
River
now
from
it's
Chesapeake Bay. These towers produced high-powered,
There you go.
very low-frequency
Look, guys,
radio
really quick.
signals that were used by the Navy to communicate with American forces during World War I, the Atlantic Fleet during World War II, and with the submarine fleet during the Cold War.
We want the
A
cool
total of
pose.
19 radio towers
You
stood
want the
here
cool
until
pose. The
1999,
arms cut off.
when all but three of those original towers were removed due to modern technology, such as satellites, coming into continual use. Visible up to 35 miles out of Chesapeake Bay, these three are used as an unofficial visual navigation aid to mariners, as well as a platform for eagles, osprey, and hawk species. As we come out of the Severn River, you have probably noticed a number of strategically placed floating and fixed objects in the water. These are aids to navigation, known as buoys that give boaters crucial information about waterway hazards. These buoys are strategically located at the edges of sandbars and along the contour of deeper channels to show boaters where they can safely navigate in order to avoid hazards that might lead to accidents or property damage. They range in colors from red, green, yellow, and white, and are sometimes equipped with lights on the top that flash at different time intervals. They also come in various shapes and sizes.
Oh, I see it tonight.
on Greenberry Points, on our left fronts, that Protestants from Virginia in 1649 established the first settlement, which they called Providence. Within 2 years, some of these settlers took up land at the present location of Annapolis. If we were to turn left around to Greenberry Points, the distance to the from there, it's another 18 miles northeast to the head of the bay where it enters the man-made Chesapeake and Delaware Canal. The canal was originally opened in October of 1829 and connects the bay with the Delaware River, Philadelphia, Delaware Bay, and the Atlantic Ocean. As a result, commercial vessels entering the Chesapeake and docking in Baltimore may continue north to Philadelphia and New York without returning to the mouth of the bay.
But
If we were to go out and turn right around Tolly Points, seen on our right front, we would go about 120 miles down the bay to its mouth, where it enters the Atlantic Ocean at Cape Charles, near the cities of Norfolk and Newport News. The land across the bay in front of us is known as Kent Island, and is part of what is known as the Delmarva Peninsula. The peninsula contains portions of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, and is cut off from the mainland by the Chesapeake and Delaware Bays, the C&D Canal, and the Delaware River. As we clear Greenberry Point on our left, you can see the twin spans of the Chesapeake Bay bridges going from the western shore, where we're now located, to the eastern shore, some 4 miles distant. The first of these spans was built in 1952, and the second in 1973. It is at this point
that's the
where the
Bay Bridge,
Chesapeake
guys.
Bay, except for its head, is the narrowest.
At the Bay Bridge, the Chesapeake.
Harbor. Please make sure to keep 3 points of contact with the vessel as we come about, keeping both feet solidly on the floor and one hand on a railing. This might be a good opportunity for you to refresh at the snack bar.
The boat that went by our right waked us a little bit.
Yeah, Chris is trying to turn it right now, so it doesn't be on their side.
As we continue our tour, which you may have seen out here today. Ahead of us, as we come in, we get a beautiful skyline of Annapolis and its spires and domes. To the right is the beautiful dome of the U.S. Naval Academy Chapel. Just to the left is the dome of the Maryland State Capitol, which is the oldest state house in continuous use for legislative purposes. It's a National Historic Landmark and the only state house to serve as the nation's capital.
Huh?
It has the largest wooden dome in the United States and is constructed entirely of cypress beams and assembled with wooden pegs. To the left of it is the spire of St. Anne's Church, and to the left of that,
Everybody.
It passes through neutral and stays in forward.
No, when you go from forward to neutral, it doesn't catch neutral, so it stays in forward.
Stays in forward.
It's weird. It stays in forward, but the throttle looks like it's neutral, but it never gets that definitive gear change.
How far back do you have to come back before you get it neutral?
It happened to me once. You really don't have to go far back at all.
Oh, you
can
do?
feel
Okay.
it. You just have to you can't be soft. You have to be firm with the changes.
front is Horn Point, which we spoke about earlier when we mentioned that Fort Horn was originally built there. The point contains a long, submerged sandbar that is marked with a green and white diamond navigational aid. According to the diary of George Washington, 1791, after boarding a ferry from the eastern shore to Annapolis, the vessel on which he was traveling ran aground twice. Washington wrote in his journal, at 8 p.m., he made the mouth of the Severn River.
Thank you.
First on Greenberry Point, having no knowledge of the channel and the night being immensely dark, with heavy squalls of wind, constant lightning, and tremendous thunder, he soon grounded again on what is called Lord's Point, where, finding all efforts in vain, he waited until morning. The pole marking of the sandbar has long been the home of a nest of bear osprey, a type of predatory bird native to the Chesapeake area. We will now be heading back in visit the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, or have steamed crabs, or other fare in the bay at the crab ball restaurants. We also offer additional 30 and 90-minute cruises to various highlighted features in and around the Chesapeake Bay, Severn River, and Spa Creek. And
Like
our
the
water
captain.
taxis will visit
The
you
captain
to any
on it,
restaurant or
at
destination of your
Yep.
choice in Annapolis Harbor. Of special interest may be our popular and exciting Bay Lighthouse Excursions. This 3-hour excursion, featuring live narration and hosted by one of our 19th century lighthouse keepers, motors past 3 of the lighthouses in the vicinity of Annapolis. Those seeking a closer look at the historic district of Annapolis, the Maryland State House, and the Naval Academy should consider our 4 centuries walking tour, leisurely exploring the town, led by a well-attired guide, bring early American history to life. For anyone traveling north of Maryland's great city of Baltimore, be sure to check out Dartmoor's Inner Waterfront Cruise, which will guide you along the historic waterfront districts. Further details of these Annapolis experiences may also be obtained in the brochure and information map of the snack bar, or from the ticket booth on the dock of Great Gardens, or by visiting our website at www.watermarkjourney.com. If you come back to Annapolis, please be sure to join us for one of our many sightseeing vessels. Till then, thank you for joining us, and enjoy your day in Annapolis.
Just text him and I had my
Very good.
I gotta thank you all very much for joining my stream. This was a pleasure to have y'all. Thank you. And I will see y'all again on this beautiful class day. Thank you. Goodbye.